In the darkest times, hope is something you give yourself. That is the meaning of inner strength. And that little piece of wisdom comes to us from the great Uncle Iroh from the TV series Avatar: The Last Airbender. In today's episode, we're going to explore our inner strength and what it means for us to be the light in the darkness as we move into the year of the Hermit. Thanks for joining me. Let's get started.
Sometimes, the work is so, you try to be true. You feel sometimes it's on the verge of a kind of craziness, but it isn't really craziness. It's really getting the truest part of yourself out, and it's very hard, I mean, it's not easy, let's say. And yet it can be very simple at the same time.
Today's episode will be like a prelude to this month's guided meditation over in the Patreon. The topic of this month, and really for the rest of this year, is the tarot card of the year, which is the Hermit. What is the card of the year, you ask? Well, there's a numerological significance for every year. The way that we calculate this is by adding together all the digits within any given year. So for the year 2025, we add 2 plus 2 plus 5 to get to the number 9. In the tradition of the tarot, the number 9 corresponds to the Hermit card within the major arcana. If you're watching over on YouTube or listening through the Patreon, you can see an image of the Hermit card. Otherwise, I really invite you to Google up a little image of the Hermit card so you can see the symbols that I reference in this episode. When you look at the Hermit card, you see a solitary figure cloaked in gray. This is a very Gandalf-like character. They have a big staff representing their power, and they hold this lantern that contains either a 5 or a 6-pointed star. It varies across different, artistic renditions of the tarot card, but a lot of the time people say that this represents the seal of Solomon, which has very deep significance, has been around for a very long time, and exists within the Hermetic traditions, and it commonly represents wisdom. The Hermit represents the inward journey that we take towards personal enlightenment. The Hermit is pictured high atop a snowy mountain, showing how far they've come in their journey, step by step, towards understanding themselves and the world around them. The Hermit card, in all of its symbolic wisdom, teaches us how important it is for us to seek understanding of ourselves first, because when we understand our own subconscious inner world, we're able to see the truth that every person on this earth is filled with a deep, rich inner world of their own. And in that way, we are all the same. In order to master our own inner world, we accomplish this by tending to our needs, going to therapy, becoming intimately familiar with our own inner motivations and the ideas and social pressures that shaped us into the person we believe we are. And then we ask ourselves, is this who I truly want to be? It's at this point that we're able to see the cognitive dissonances between how we are in this moment, how we got there, and what we see ourselves becoming in the future. We find that we have more wisdom within us than what the world would have us believe. We see the world for all it is, not in black and white, but in all the shades of gray that exist. This is reflected within that gray robe that the Hermit wears. They understand that many truths exist at once, and yet goodness and kindness are at the heart of all journeys of enlightenment. Over this last month, I spent a lot of time thinking about the Hermit. I wanted to figure out how I wanted to talk about their message on this podcast and what it really means for us in the world that we're currently living in, where it feels like darkness is creeping in from every corner. I believe that the hermit, shown to us as this solitary figure, isn't necessarily only about taking action towards your own enlightenment. I want us to ask ourselves a few questions, starting with, how does a truly spiritually enlightened person act when faced with earthly tragedies? It's my belief that the hermit goes on this inward journey in order to then disseminate what they have learned, to encourage others to do the work for themselves. And when each of us are able to heal ourselves, we've healed the world. If all of us go on these inward journeys to understand our shadows and to integrate them, then we are all better off as a collective. An enlightened person is compassionate. Think of the examples of people that come to your mind when you think of someone that became enlightened. Those people help however they are able, often putting themselves aside to lend whatever aid is required for the people that are suffering around them. What is enlightenment if it is only for ourselves? What's the point of enlightenment if we do not then use what we have learned as a spiritual being to then take action as a physical being down here on earth? You're going to see, and you probably have seen, a lot of spiritual creators speaking on the importance of focusing in on your own needs and your own wellness. And I think that that is very important. But I also think we should remind ourselves of our individual collective power to create good. Each of us on an individual level can make choices and take actions that change our own environment around us. It's significant to me that the hermit holds a lantern containing a bright burning star, providing light in the darkness of night. Just like the quote I shared with you at the beginning of this podcast, in the darkest times, hope is something you give yourself. That is the meaning of inner strength. In 2024, our card of the year was the 8th major arcana card of strength. We have spent the last year building our inner strength within ourselves in order to withstand the coming future. Now, it's time for us to summon that strength into a beacon of light for the long night ahead. I invite you to ask yourself these important questions. How will you use your little needlepoint of power to create lasting, loving change in the world? What does it mean to be one very small part of a larger universe? How can you help your friends and strangers alike to get through the darkness? I ask you to light the way before the coming of the dawn of a new and better era. Be the light for yourself and for the people around you. And for now, I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you for listening to this episode. If this idea and the messages within resonated with you, then I'd like to invite you to join the Patreon. If you want to learn further about and from the Hermit card, you can go over to our Patreon and subscribe to access the guided meditation that I've crafted for the Hermit card. I will be posting a preview for it over on my Instagram, so you can go ahead and check that out as well. I want to say thank you to everyone who has already followed and subscribed over at the Patreon. Your support really, truly means the world to me. I appreciate it so much. I'm super excited to see how it's going to grow in the coming years, and soon I'm going to be incorporating collective tarot readings into the Tier 1 patron membership starting later this week. Stay safe out there. Hold on to hope, focus on the light, and keep doing the things you love. I'll see y'all in the next one. You can visit marymusexoxo.com to see all of Mary's links. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on all your favorite listening platforms. And if you feel inclined, leave a 5-star review for us. Musings with Mary is listener-sponsored, so if you'd like to support the podcast, please check out our Patreon. Shout out to all our current patrons. Thank you so much for the support. We'll see you in the next episode.